guys so much. Give it up for Natalia. Thank you. Oh.
He's here, he's just a little late. You didn't hear it from me, but he may have gotten a little lost. Exactly. So, nope. Yeah. Okay, so just a quick few announcements for you guys. First and foremost, we have a microphone here in the middle. So if you have questions for him, if they take questions, please use the microphone. We'd like to hear what you say. Next, we have something called FlipON.TV. We are recording live. If you look back there, you'll see a camera recording right now. So if you want, you can get on to FlipON.TV and you can watch all the panels live. Next, if I could just have you turn off all flash on your on your camera phones and such, could you just turn off the flashes? Take as many pictures as you want, though. We want to see all those pictures on Twitter and Facebook and all that. And lastly, if you have cell phones, if you could just put them on mute or silent or whatever. If you get phone calls, typically I say take them out there and take your phone call out there. But at this time, I would tell you to just say, don't answer it and stay here because it's Michael Shanks, right? So I'm going to get off the stage. We have someone who's going to introduce him, and I didn't catch his name, so he's going to come up.
I'll introduce myself. It's no problem. So, firstly, my name is Ryan Harris. I'm with KOMO News Radio here in Seattle, and you can hear me if you're up at what we like to call God o'clock, the time that most people are sound asleep, but they're still building planes at Boeing. Thank you for that, Boeing guys, by the way. Appreciate you. I'm going to keep this brief because we're already running late, and my goal is to get as many audience questions in as we can. So I'm going to keep myself to a minimum. This is not about me. This is about you, the fans, and Michael, who we'll bring out in just a second. What I ask is we try, so we can get as many audience questions in as we can, try to keep them short, to a minimum. I know sometimes the folks like to say, hey, can I come up and get a hug, that sort of thing. We're a little short on time for that, so let's try to squeeze as much in as we can. And with that said, I'd like to introduce the star of our show this afternoon, the one and only Mr. Michael Shanks.
You're making it so hot in here.
Yeah. So obviously now I have to ask the first question. Is there a six-pack under there?
No, they wouldn't let me bring it in.
Ladies, who wants to see? It's up to the star.
There's only one woman that gets to see that. And she thinks it's no big deal.
Well, she is very lovely and talented as well. I tell you, the first thing I wanted to ask you about is what you're working on now, and that's Saving Hope. We've got a second season on the way. Have you started production on that yet?
No, I go to Toronto in about a week. A week Monday is actually when I go to Toronto. We start filming in 2, so.
Okay, all right, fantastic. And it's still not clear if NBC is going to pick that up, but I understand that doesn't mean that it's just going to be limited to Canadian audiences, that it'll be somewhere.
Yeah, NBC is not going to pick it up. I think what I've heard is because NBC sucks. That's just a rumor I've heard. Because they thought that Do No Harm about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde Doctor was a better show.
Okay. Yeah, I don't understand some of their I don't understand some of their choices either, but we're an ABC affiliate, so I'm fine if you say
Perfect.
NBC sucks. That's fine. When you're done watching Saving Hope, tune into Dancing with the Stars.
No, we're, as far as I know, last I'd heard when I was, this is in November from our distributor, which is E1 Entertainment, that they were exploring the possibilities of another American network picking it up, or not necessarily a network show, but probably more like a cable station, like an Ion network or Lifetime or Hallmark or something like that. I haven't heard anything, so I don't know what's going on. Not, they haven't announced anything, so I try and read what I can about the show as much as everybody else does. So, as far as I know, I don't know anything yet, but I do know that there will be something available for people in the States to see it, whether it be Hulu or whether it be a syndicated package that they're going to sell. I don't know. I'll know more details in the week when I get there.
Excellent. And how are you enjoying the show compared to some of the others you've done? Is there any difference in terms of how it's put together?
Well, in this one, I started off kind of dead, so it's different than most.
You get to spend a lot of time napping while you're working.
Usually most shows I start off alive and end up dead. This one I started off dead, and by the end of it I ended up alive. It's awesome. It's great. So that's a difference. Yeah. No. I get to make out a lot with Erica Durance, so it's
I'm going to clap for that one.
Awful work. Yes, it's terrible.
Yeah, fellow Smallville alum too.
Yeah, yeah. For those Smallville watchers to watch Hawkman and all three of you, for those Smallville watchers, watching Lois Lane and Hawkman make out might be a little strange for you week to week, but no, it's a fun show. I really enjoy working with her, and I enjoy the show. So we got 18 episodes for our second season, so we failed upwards, so it's great. So we're really looking forward to the second season.
Fantastic. Well, since you brought up Smallville, and since that's probably, even though I am a Stargate watcher, that's where I know you the best. Let's take us back there just a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your experience on that show, what you thought of your co-stars there, and getting to know Erica Durance for one, a little bit here and there.
Well, actually, I'd met and worked with Erica, I think in 2003. She actually, one of her first jobs was working on Stargate. She, I can't remember the name of the episode, but she was Teal'c's love interest in that. What was it? What was it? Thank God you guys are here. You guys are the best, because when Richard Dean Anderson ends up doing a con, you have to keep throwing him the stuff, because if he's going to tell a story, he won't even know the names of the people. He'll know kind of what happened. You just keep throwing it. But so she was in Affinity. It was one of her earliest jobs before she started doing Smallville. So I met her on that, and Vancouver's a close-knit acting community, so we always sort of saw each other and stayed in touch that way. And then, of course, working on Smallville, now Saving Hope. It's been lovely. It's been lovely for me to watch the evolution of her from really beginning, really green and eager and naive, to now she's one of the producers of our show. So it's been an interesting evolution to sit back and watch her go from this, wide-eyed girl to this, this really experienced veteran woman, and it's been fantastic to watch that. Doing Smallville, I was approached to do the role. I think somebody somewhere, in the small-minded way that casting operates, said, "Hey, this guy's an archaeologist and an Egyptologist. Let's get that guy from that show, the archaeologist. The guy. The casting will know his name." And so they put the offer to me, and once I'd read the script for Justice Society, I was a little mesmerized by the fact that they chose me, because Daniel was this nebbish kind of character who was wide-eyed and whatever most of the time, and this Carter Hall was this bitter, jaded prick. superhero by night, but he's kind of given up on everything. So I kind of went, but I looked at it and I said, well, but it's a really cool role. I went, looks like they kind of screwed up, but I'm not telling them. And then later on, when I was trying on the costume, I realized actually I was the one who had screwed up. Because I don't know if for any of you that have seen it, that costume was ridiculous. Justin Hartley, who played Green Arrow, took delight off camera, making sure that he called me Chicken Man. That was very helpful. He's really helpful in the process. And he's a lot of fun. Justin's great. Yeah, the pack, the chassis, the wings, they all weighed about 55 to 75 pounds on your back, and it sort of dipped into your lower back, so your center of gravity was screwed up for one. So when, in the wider shots, when Hawkman lands, half the time when Hawkman landed, he kind of landed like this. Or what it was, and then trying to walk in the outfit too. I also had to move the wings. I had a puppeteer behind me. And this is the part where you go, the filmmaking process is the most absurd process going, because here I am in a giant chicken suit, and I have the guy in the full green screen pajamas, the Spider-Man green pajamas behind me, moving my wings. And he wasn't really strong enough. He wasn't a really built guy, and these were the gears on them were made of metal to articulate them, and he had to do it by hand. And they're really heavy, full feathers and everything like that. So they had this, and so I'd be walking, and they'd be wanting the wings to move up or whatever in unison, and I'd hear this guy behind me going, ugh, ugh. And I'm trying to do my dialogue, but I'm kind of killing myself laughing on the inside. There's this guy behind me. I'll just let you live with that for a little while. Yeah. And after the first day we had, they also, the suit itself, although it may not have looked it, the suit itself with a helmet cost $10,000 to make. It was the ceramic, personalized helmet. And then they sort of tried to do the breastplate as best they could to sort of fit it, but the material it was made of, plus all the chassis work and the harnesses, were roughly, the suit was $30,000. So when I turned to the producer at one point and I said, so we're going to do some CGI with this as well, the flying stuff, and he goes, no. I said, so how are we going to do it? He's like, on the wires. And I said, oh, we getting a double for that? And he's like, no. And I said, oh, really cool. And I said, that's awesome. Oh, okay. And he said, yeah. He said, we talked to James Bamford, Bam Bam, who's one of our fight coordinators, and just to sort of figure out, if you'd be cool sort of doing this stuff on your own. And he was like, yeah, it'd be awesome. So I immediately called Bam Bam and said, what the did you get me into? And anyway, after the first day, we were doing this fight sequence where, we're rehearsing the fight sequence, and we were doing it kind of all day, where Hawkman's flying down and bouncing the Frosty Kid, whatever his name was, with the mace in the face. And it was about, I was in the harness and the gear all day, but I was also up in the wires, which is really painful because there's articulation points they put the wires, and one of them is around your crotch. One of them's around your crotch. It's kind of like getting a wedgie all day. So when I showed up for work the second day, I was kind of flat in my back on the couch going, I was so stiff I couldn't really move that much. So they gave me some Motrin and some other things to sort of, deal with the pain, and they kind of used me sparingly throughout the day. And it just sucked. The suit did. And what was hilarious about it was that by the end of the run of playing the character, they finally, by the last episode, had done a beautiful job, because now they could afford it. The suit was paid for. Now they could afford in that episode to do the CGI wings. And so they were great. It was like I just wore the breastplate and jumped through the window and all this other stuff, and the wings sort of did their thing on their own on the screen. It looks fantastic. And then Hawkman dies, and that's it. So just like with most things, By the time they got it right, I was dead.
Just what you needed.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And I'm glad you mentioned the Vancouver community, your acting community being tight-knit. I'm sure you've worked at both ends of the West Coast at some point. How is it different from Hollywood? Because I know years ago I worked around some location sets and had done some different things and saw how things went on there. It seems like it's kind of a different atmosphere.
Yeah, it's hard to explain why. I think I know roughly what you're talking about. It's hard to explain why, but I do know that because the industry hasn't been in Vancouver for 100 years. It's been there for the last 25 to a large degree in terms of a lot of work going on there. Both the crews and the actors that have grown up and are working there, there's a certain gratitude factor. There's not a level of entitlement that seems to come out of the Los Angeles system, that there's more, people that expect that they deserve more than they do. I think there's a lot more gratitude that comes out of the people that work there. So because the industry is new and because it could go away at any moment, everybody kind of, works their asses off. And because it's a smaller community, you see the same people over and over again. And you know who you worked well with. And, it's always funny when I'm working on a movie or something up there, and the star of the show will come in at a certain point, and it'll be my first day, and it'll be their first day, and we'll go to work, and I'll be saying hi to everybody like I've worked here my entire life because I know everybody, and that star will be going, "Who the hell are you, man?" And I'll just try to explain, it's like, look, it's a small town. I know I've probably worked with some of these people for years and years and years, and this is the first time some of them have worked. Some of the actors from LA have worked in Vancouver, so it's just a tighter knit community, and with that, there's a certain amount of brotherhood that exists with that.
Excellent. Now I want to back up a little bit because we sort of glossed it over there. Are there Smallville fans in the room here? Let's hear from you. That's better. That's better. Just out of curiosity, any Doctor Who fans? I'm sorry, you're in the wrong room. This is the Michael Shanks panel. And with Stargate in mind, I'm going to ask one question, and it's not what I've been planning for weeks to ask, thanks to a lovely lady named Carol from Kent, England, who I met outside waiting to come in here. And then I'm gonna open it up to audience questions here. What can you tell me about Daniel Jackson's Hussies? And before you answer that, Daniel Jackson's Hussies in the room. Let's hear from you. Come on. I know there's more than two of you here. You don't have to be ashamed. What do you know about this?
What do I know about them?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's only two of them. Let's ask them. Carol, tell us a little bit about your group and.
Well, what better choice?
By appreciating a really good program, an absolutely fantastic actor. Not you. You might know where that one came from.
Yeah.
And just basically enjoying
How's your wife feel about him?
I think she goes to lunch with some of them some of the time.
Okay, well, with that, I'm going to shut up now. Let's take the first question.
Hello, Michael.
Hi.
My question is about Daniel Jackson. I kind of have a bit of a pet theory that he may be on like the really low end, like the Asperger's autism spectrum.
What do I think about that?
Yeah.
He is, but on a sliding scale, David Hewlett is like down there. Notice how I didn't say McKay, I said David Hewlett.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
It's,
Am I close enough? There we go. I've heard things about how close you and Christopher Judge are, and that a long time ago I heard rumors that you two were working on some projects and some pilots, and I was wondering what happened with those, and because I haven't heard anything about those since.
I don't know. I haven't talked to Chris for quite a while, and I know he was trying to get them developed. He had gone through numerous partners to try and get them developed. I understand he still might be trying to get them developed, but after a while, I just had to move on with what was going on in front of me. So I think he's more the person to talk to with what's going on with those. 'Cause none of them really obviously came to fruition.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That was great.
It was clear on Stargate that the writers considered your remarkable versatility to just be the greatest thing in their toy box, and they wrote so many ways for you to be different versions of yourself and different people in your body. What were some of your favorite acting challenges that really excited you to take on?
Yeah, that was the great thing about being on the show. And quite frankly, the great thing about being on any kind of science fiction show, one of the reasons why doing that many years of a program was great. If for something like Saving Hope, if we had to do a medical show, if I had to do that for 10 years, you'd have to, about year 4, you'd be going, what the hell am I doing, But I think with science fiction, the benefit of it is that anything can happen. And so any permutation is possible. It's not just, say, for example, if you're on ER and your doctor that you're playing is a drug addict or something like that, there's a certain year-long arc you may take with that, or 2 years long, or maybe it's the whole journey of the character that'll go through, and even that'll get old. With science fiction, you can do it over an episode. You could say, we got some alien thing, and he's got this kind of problem. It's kind of like a drug addiction and whatever. We did that in Need, for example, and I don't know. They really enjoyed putting me to the test. As John Glasner put it early on, he said, "We just keep throwing this crap at you, and you keep making it work. That's awesome." I think he was talking specifically about the episode Fire and Water, where I had to spend the entire time locked in a room with Fish Boy, strapped to a chair, and from the outside you're going, "What the hell am I doing?" But I was so excited at that point to get a little bit more to do on the show. I kind of dove in head first, and it was a lot of fun. So I think that's kind of what he meant is boy, that Richard Dean Anderson sure wouldn't be talking to that fish for very long. But you seem like not only okay with it, you're excited about it. Who's this guy? So I just enjoy episodes like Legacy, where Daniel went a little schizophrenic and crazy, and Lifeboat, where he had 13 different personalities inside of him, and things like that, and even other challenges too, where you get to do this kind of 1969, where you get to do the German accent, which ended up being kind of Hungarian. But anyway, that's not important. That's a long other story I'll get into. All those kind of little tidbits that you get along the way. It's a lot of fun as an actor to be able to step outside your range when you get to play the old man or do the voice of Thor, and getting to write and direct on the show. It just kept it interesting and fresh all the time, and it made that time pass really quickly. All those years, which is just a benefit of working on a show like that. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to ask, what's your favorite story or favorite moment that you like to talk about with working on SG-1?
My favorite moment working on SG-1? Probably when I got the job. Because I was in Toronto contemplating getting a real job and sleeping on my buddy's couch at the time. So when that all sort of worked out, I was a little over the moon.
Hello.
Hey.
So this has been driving me nuts for years. The episode Window of Opportunity.
Yeah.
When the day starts over again for Teal'c O'Neill, you just got done asking him a question and asking his feelings. Was there ever actually a question or a thought, or did the writers just want to irritate people?
I've been doing these cons now for I think about 10, 11 years, and it's always a question that comes up.
Okay,
I wanted
to be original.
Yeah, and I no, but it's a good question. It's a fair question, and what I love about that question is the fact I'm never going to answer it.
Carly Simon's got
Fair
nothing
enough.
on you.
Thank you.
It just guarantees that the question is always going to be asked from here on in.
When they asked you to play on a burn notice, did they tell you right away, pretty much, that, by the way, your character is going to be dead by the time you're off the show?
No, not at all, actually. I had read for the show, not even knowing at the time, I put something down on tape from Vancouver, actually, for this character that was supposed to be recurring over the course of that season, and not having any idea other than the fact that he was working for Carla, and he was this, kind of every bit equal to Michael's, spy. He was the opposite kind of thing, and they trade quips and barbs, and all I got was the first episode to look at, and that changed slightly over time. And then I had this huge break in between, months and months, before I went back to the show. And even when I went back to the show, I remember we were night shooting one of the sequences where you finally know it's Victor, and he's doing parkour across the rooftop. Not my choice, and that wasn't me. I remember one of the producers came up to me and he sort of said, I said, so what's going to happen? I've only read like this one, and I show up in the last scene of it, and he's like, oh, I don't know if I can tell you. And I went, what? He goes, well, you kind of hijacked the season at the end there, and I'll let Matt talk to you, kind of thing. And nobody talked to me, and I was in Miami for about a month and a half. And then I got the script and then read what had sort of happened. But at that point, I was so kind of, I thought it was really nice. I thought it was one of the best episodes of the show that had existed on paper, and I also thought it was one of the better characters I'd gotten to play over the course of my career, because it was such a great villain to play, and then to go back and find out all that backstory that justifies who he is and why he is the way he is, and make him sympathetic was a great flip. And it was a nice way to be done. So without as much as I would have loved to continue to play the character, without that ending, it wouldn't have been so memorable. So I appreciated what Matt did with it. And I think to this day, it's still a credit to him, because it really was the writing that people want to talk about that character more.
Cool, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, before the next question, it made me think of something too. You ever had an acting gig that was just like torture for you, that you just couldn't wait to be done with?
Yes. Yes, I have. Yep.
Not going to tell me about it?
I could go on for hours about those ones. It was funny. I was doing this horrid movie. Close. That's yes, that's the one. That's it.
Very good.
At least you didn't have to list off 10 others that you thought were horrible before you got to the ones that actually are. Because that could happen too. I was doing this movie called Lost Treasure of the Grand Canyon, and it was just a horrific piece of twaddle. But the script wasn't bad. And that's the thing, is you sit there, you get handed a script, and they tell you, this is what they're going to offer to pay you to do the job. And you go, hey, this doesn't look so bad, because you sort of go, in this kind of, Indiana Jones-esque kind of adventure, there's a lot of possibility here, but you're also looking, going, and this is what I've learned along the way, you should look at it and go, well, how the hell are they going to do that? The answer to that question is usually not very well. And that's the problem, is that what it looks like on the page when it comes to stunts and action and things like that, well, that's all well and good if it's shot by Steven Spielberg on a $120 million budget. When it's shot in Kamloops on a budget of $1 million, your quicksand pit turns into a glorified hot tub with, the actors wearing wetsuits so they're floating. It's supposed to fit 6 people in it because they're all sort of getting sunk into this quicksand. It's actually 6 of them can't fit, otherwise they'd be sitting shoulder to shoulder. And then you ask the question, well, how the hell did they get stuck in there, and why can't they just reach for the side and get out? And so I remember turning to Shannon at a certain point, because we were both in hell. Shannon Doherty, who was the lead female in the movie, and I remember turning at a certain point going, what the hell have we done? And she said, you know what? She was laughing her way through it, because she's even more experienced than I am, and she was like, you know what? If it wasn't for these really awful experiences that we've had, we wouldn't have the great stories that we have. Which is very true, because a lot of my you will never effing believe this stories come from these horrible movies, because they're just so ridiculous you can't imagine. When you keep wondering why the guy who's, the camera focus puller keeps getting screamed at from the side when you've only got one camera in the movie, and you find out later he's got a glass eye. Dead serious. A one-camera movie, and the guy whose chief job on the set is to have depth perception to keep you in focus has one eye. You know you've stepped through the looking glass. So and then, like I said, I could go on about the paper mache and the shit. And we filmed him with Mega Snake was filmed in Bulgaria. Enough said.
Okay, so we've only got 5 minutes left. Let's try to rattle through a couple of these. I know it started a little late. It happens. Well,
I couldn't find the room.
Fighting the way through
I
the
couldn't
crowd
find the
to
room.
get here. The man is in high demand.
No, that's not true.
So let's try. Let's
find the
go.
room.
Shall we? You want to go for speed round?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, ready? Go.
This has been bugging me for a while. Okay, at one point in Stargate, Jack calls Daniel Space Monkey. Is
Yes.
there a story behind that, or is that just Richard?
Absolutely not. That's Richard being Richard.
Okay.
Pulled it out of his ass. And that was half the time when he would say stuff like that, we just look at him going, well, I guess we're keeping that. Keep going. Just go with it.
Excellent. Okay, next.
Hi, you have the Mr. Hockey movie coming up.
Yes.
I've been wondering, have you played hockey your whole life, and do you have a favorite team?
Yes, I do. The Canucks. Yeah, and it's coming out. It'll be here in the States on Hallmark Channel May 4th.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
That'll be a great birthday present for me.
Excellent.
First, thanks for coming. Big fan. Seen everything except for Smallville because I can't stand Superman, but that's just me. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean for the man to get booed.
You
Let's
can't
ask a
come to
question.
something called Comic-Con and say, I can't stand Superman.
Everybody has a superhero they hate.
Security!
Yeah, that would be like me coming up here and saying, you know, that Stargate SG-1 really sucks.
I hate science fiction anyway.
So, to get to my question,
Yes.
it's a quick two-part question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know that your first actual job was on Highlander, the series.
Second, actually.
That's as far as I knew. That was the first one.
All right, cool.
Anyway, did you see that as a precursor to all of your characters dying after that?
No.
Okay, let's try to squeeze in one more. I think we have time for one more, right? Let's squeeze it in anyway. What the hell? Let him hook us off the stage.
Too tall.
Pull it down. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Candace.
Hi, Candace.
Is that my name? Okay.
Hi, Candace.
And that's on tape, by the way.
So really quickly, I know that Daniel Jackson went through a lot of phases, and I was wondering what was your favorite phase that you liked? Like, I know this is a weird question. So basically, like, there was where he was dork, the very first movie, and
I wasn't in that.
I consider it a movie. So the very first time you see him, he was kind of this dork, nerd, great person, and then it kind of just morphs, and then at the very end, he's like some galactic.
I'm sorry, you had a question?
We're not doing really well with speed round.
The answer is all of them.
Okay.
Okay. Are we?
Now, come on. Give her.
Okay, I'm getting one saying it's okay. One more.
1 minute.
1 minute. There we go. So let's make it quick.
First, you were awesome as Hawkeye. I appreciate the...
Hawkman.
Hawkman, sorry.
I think the other is
Comic-Con.
MASH.
Comic-Con.
A little dehydrated in the leather, people. Just a little. Sorry. I just wanted to know what your favorite episode to do with Teal'c was. You guys had such great chemistry on SG-1, and I just was curious which one you really enjoyed the most.
Something with a strip joint. That was usually off screen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Okay, we better
Hallo.
wrap
Wait,
it up.
wait,
here.
wait,
Oh,
wait,
we're gonna squeeze one more
Yeah,
in.
come on, let's do it.
All right.
Hallo Michael, guten Tag und Dankeschön. And I'm happy I see you. I'm from Germany, and you've been popular all over the world, not only here. And I have a question. When you came this book out, I find it accidentally 2 weeks in the library. They sell it Sunrise, Stargate #1.
Okay.
When you make that part.
I didn't. What is it? What the hell is it?
It's your book with your picture.
And what?
Stargate #1.
And you asked me when I.
When you did this episode.
What episode is it? Oh, it's. We didn't.
Okay, so it's your picture, and so thank you for meeting you, and have a good time.
Thank you.
Maybe I come later, dive, and I miss you, and you can see the book.
Okay.
Okay, what the hey? What the hey? We'll take the
Yeah,
last
why not?
one
Let's do
line.
it. Come on.
Let's do it.
Okay, if money were no object, you could, do anything, had all the resources in place. What would be your ideal project? What would you want to do?
Oh boy, I just did my hockey movie, so I can't really say. I did. I mean, probably a hockey movie, another hockey movie, because we had so much fun doing it, and I've got one in my mind right now. But right now, I'm so happy with the one we just did that let's do another one.
That's fair. Thank you.
Can't wait to see it. And of course, you guys all know who he is, but out of habit, Mr. Michael Shanks, star of Saving Hope, Stargate SG-1, Smallville.